Okay, so we're going to be studying Torah. Patnja Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer. This is the topic of Yisurim. Again, this is the fifth, I believe it's the fifth class of En Yaakov. This is all from the Gemara. Again, everything we're reading is from the Gemara, Masechet Berachot, Perek Aleph. Okay, just so you know. Shalosh Matanot Tovot, Natan HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. There are three special gifts that God, the Almighty, gave to the Jewish people. Meaning these are three gifts that the Jewish people as a nation received these three gifts to the exclusion of everyone else. Right? And here are the three gifts. Number one, Torah. Number one, the Torah was given to the Jewish people. The Torah was the basis for the covenant between the Almighty and the Jewish people. The main point of Am Yisrael. The main point of why do we have a nation called Am Yisrael? Why do we have a nation called Bnei Yisrael? What is special about us is that we are the nation and the only nation that entered into a covenant with the Almighty where we said we will accept the laws that God gives us. And in exchange for accepting these laws, God will take special care of us. We will be the eternal nation. We will be His representatives on earth. And the laws of God that He gave us, these laws are the Torah. So the Torah was given to the Jewish people to the exclusion of everyone else. Number one. Number two, Be'eretz Yisrael. God gave us the land of Israel. It is fitting that if there is a nation, and only one nation, that follows the laws of God, that represents the ways of God, this nation should have its own physical country. That country is going to be the place where God dwells, His presence. As you know, when you go to Eretz Yisrael, you feel the Shekhinah, you feel the presence of the Almighty. You go to Jerusalem, you feel the Shekhinah even more strongly. You go to the Kotel, or maybe some people go to the Har HaBayit, you really feel the immense Kedusha of where you're at. So God gave us the Torah on the one side, but He also gave us Eretz Yisrael, which has His presence on the other side. So these two things, Torah, Eretz Yisrael, again to the exclusion of all other people. And finally, the Ha'olam Haba. We have a special place in Olam Haba. What does it mean we have a special place in Olam Haba? Kol Yisrael, Yesh Ha'em Chelek L'Olam Haba. Because we entered into a covenant with the Almighty, on the one hand, we're not like the Muslims. We don't care whether you, Gentile, become Jewish or don't become Jewish. It's of no interest to us. We're not trying to cause people to join Judaism. On the contrary, if somebody wants to become a Jew, we tell them, why don't you think about it carefully? Do you really want to do this? It's very undesirable to be a Jew. You're going to be persecuted. Why do you want to become Jewish? We're the only ones who do that. Islam, if you don't become Muslim, they want to take over. Why are they taking over Europe? Why are they taking over the UK? Why are they taking over? Now they want to take over America. Oh, today was Mamdani's inauguration. He did it over a Quran. That's wonderful. Now, the point is, they want everybody to accept Islam, right? The Christians used to be aggressive about it. In the days of the Inquisition, they wanted everybody to accept Christianity. The Christians today, I'm not an expert in Christianity, but at least they're not killing people like they did back then. Back then they used to torture people to death to force them to convert. Today they don't do it. I have to give credit where credit is due. They kind of took a step back, but they do want everybody to become Christian, meaning from the perspective of the Christians, maybe they don't kill people today. Fair enough. I give them credit, but they do want everybody to become Christian. They're always out there in the street, Jews for Jesus, right? They have them in Israel, they have them all over the place, they have them here all over the place. They want to convert people, especially Jews, into Christianity. The Jewish people, we don't want to convert anybody. We don't care. Be a Gentile, and be a good Gentile. Please. And if you're a good Gentile, you can have Olam Haba. Right? Hasidei Umot HaOlam, a Gentile that follows the 7 Noahide laws, has Chelek L'Olam Haba. So again, we're very open. But the Jewish people, we have a special portion of the world to come. Because we have a special relationship with Kudsha Berichu. We have a special relationship with God. That's Nobody has that. Nobody has a special relationship. There is a book that we read once a week which describes the special love that God has for the Jewish people and the special love that the Jewish people have for God. What book is that? Shir Hashirim Asher Shlomo, right? Yishakeni min neshikot pihu ki tovim dolecha miyayin. That's God, and Am Yisrael, right? We have the special Todi li va'ani lo, right? Very beautiful, special, almost a romantic relationship, right? So that's special. So does that mean that we're not against anybody? The same way I have a special relationship with my wife. I'm sure you all have special relationships with your wives. That doesn't mean that you're against other people. It just means that there is a special relationship, and you share things with her, and she shares things with you that you understand, and that's to the exclusion of everybody else, right? So the same thing with us. What?
Nobody understands the word.
Okay.
You didn't give us that. We need number 4.
Okay, we need number 4. Okay, but Olam Haba. That's why we have a special place in Olam Haba, which is Am Yisrael Kol Yisrael Eshem Chalek Olam Haba. Right? The Amev Kulam Sadikim. Right? That's how we start. We have the Torah, and as a nation, we are a holy nation unto God. So these are the 3 special gifts. But there's something very unusual. And I think about this a lot. Like now that I see the resurgence of anti-Semitism all over the world. In Europe, it didn't surprise me so much. It's been happening for years and decades. And when they let in these anti-Semitic Muslims, they let in people from countries, and just you need to understand this. The countries that these Muslims come from, if you go to any of these countries, 90% of the people in these countries hate Jews vehemently. So of course, it wasn't a great surprise that Europe became anti-Semitic, right? It was surprising to me that America became anti-Semitic. Now, first anti-Semitism started with the Democrats, but now it's also among the Republicans, right? We have crazy Tucker Carlson, the Qatar guy who loves Qatar, he loves the people funding the destruction of America. Tucker Carlson loves them. Then you have loony, what's her name? Candace Owens. She's a lunatic, I think that the Jews killed Kennedy. I don't have any evidence, but I think that. So you have these lunatics now on the right side, Nick Fuentes and others. So now you see the resurgence of anti-Semitism in America. So I've been thinking about this lately, and I'm telling myself, so what's going on here? Meaning, why are the Jews? I'm looking at this not from a logical perspective, because there is no logic to anti-Semitism, but I'm looking at this from a broader, overarching perspective. What is happening? And it's clear that over the course of history, the Jewish people have been hated by many, many nations, and now we're going to see that that's part of the challenge of being a Jew. Part of the challenge of being a Jew is to accept the Yisurim that is, and now we're going to see the relationship, and here it is. So this Gemara is going to explain what the Yisurim is about, and the answer is, and I'll summarize it. You can't accept the Torah, you can't accept Eretz or receive the Torah, you can't receive Eretz Israel, you can't receive Olam Haba if you're just going to be a run-of-the-mill person in a run-of-the-mill, dull, average attitude towards life. If you have a run-of-the-mill, dull, average attitude towards life, you cannot receive Torah, you cannot receive Eretz Israel, you cannot receive Olam Haba. These 3 things, and I'm reading the sentence, Dechulam, these 3 things that characterize who we are as a nation, Lo netanan el al yedei Yisurim. When God gave us the Torah, it was with Yisurim. When God gave us Eretz Yisrael, it was with Yisurim. And when God gave us Olam Haba, it's through Yisurim. So, when the Torah, we're going to read it now about the Torah, we're going to read about Eretz Yisrael, we're going to read about the Olam Haba. Let's start with the Torah. But you understand the basic theme of this sugya? The basic theme is, if you're a Jew, what makes us Jewish? Torah, Eretz Yisrael, Olam Haba. And therefore, you're going to have to accept Yisurim. Why Torah? You'll see in a moment. Why does Eretz Yisrael bring Yisurim? You'll see in a moment. Why does Olam Haba bring Yisurim? You'll see in a moment. That's the theme of tonight's Gemara. So let's start with Torah. Torah minayin. How do we know Torah? Dichtiv. Ashrei hagever asher tiyaserenu yaha umitoratecha telamedenu. The pasuk says explicitly, fortunate is the person who is afflicted by the Almighty, and in these afflictions, he learns the Torah, he understands the Torah, meaning through the Yisurim, God enables us to understand the meaning of the Torah. I'm going to explain this in two ways. Right? The first way is as follows. The Torah is different. Okay, the Torah is different. It wasn't written by man. It wasn't written by a legislature. The Torah comes from God. So the values and ideas contained in the Torah are different than the contemporary values and ideas. All right? Now, we, as human beings, we have a mind, and when we read something, we try to impose our ideas upon that text that we're reading. Right? And this happens with the Torah. People are always trying to impose their values and their culture about the Torah, right? On the Torah. And in this way, they're creating a counterfeit form of Judaism, right? So, for example, you have the Reform Jews. The Reform Jews, they say, no, the Torah is really about making the world a better place, right? Right. So they read the Torah. They call it in Hebrew Tikkun Olam. Tikkun Olam, making the world a better place. In Barney the dinosaur, what was Barney the dinosaur about? Making the world a better place, like this. And, right, I love you, you love me, okay. Whatever, that's Tikkun Olam. If I had to summarize Tikkun Olam, just watch Barney the dinosaur, you'll understand. So they're imposing Barney the dinosaur, making the world a better place on the Torah. And the Torah, that's what the Torah is. The Torah is about making the world a better place. So do you have to eat kosher? No. What's wrong? I eat lobster and shrimp. When I eat lobster and shrimp, am I making the world a worse place? No. I'm making it worse, actually. If I don't eat it because now I'm making fights with the goyim, eat the lobster, eat the shrimp, marry goyim, do a bar mitzvah for your dog. This is progress. This is intellectual depth. When you take the bar mitzvah, your dog, and you give it a bar mitzvah, wow, that's great. If you want the Torah, you have to be willing to suffer. Suffering is intellectual, it's cultural. You're going to realize through the suffering that the Torah is different. Right? Sometimes you need a smack in the face. Right? Grow up, understand what God wants of you. And it's not Barney the dinosaur, and it's not Teletubbies. It's something else. But you need to get slapped in the face so you wake up from the fraudulent culture around you and the values around you, and you seek something else. So when you have that slap in the face, the challenge, and now you're beginning to take a journey, your mind opens up and it can receive something different. When everything is culture, okay, let me put it in other words, because maybe some of you are not getting the idea. When everything is comfortable, let's say you live in a perfect society, everything is comfortable, you have a nice house with a white picket fence and a dog called Muffins and whatever, maybe a cat called Muffins, okay, God forbid, a dog called Fido, and everything is great. There's nothing stimulating you to say, maybe there's something wrong with the culture around me. And then you become assimilated into the world around you because everything is great. It's when you're challenged and when you're struggling and when you have to deal with difficult situations that you begin to reject the world, say, there's something wrong with the world. Maybe the world isn't as good as I thought it was. And that's when your mind opens up to receiving the Torah for real. Not as a counterfeit, but really open up the book and try to understand what is it that God wants for you. Understand the relationship between Yisurim and the Torah. Questions? Like there's somebody who's not understanding. Tell me, Rabbi, we don't understand.
So it's when God challenges us in life or in general, that's when the truth of Torah becomes crystallized.
Because when your mind is dull, when you're just like in a bored state, you're not going to open up your mind to new ideas, you're just going to accept the culture around you. So God challenges us. And in challenging us, He gives us the opportunity to read the Torah for what it really is. Right? Not to impose our ideas upon the Torah. Right? The Chachamim saying this is the second thing I wanted to say, which is related to the first thing. That's why was the mountain of Sinai called Har Sinai? Sinai. What does Sinai mean? Sheyarda Sin'a la'olam. Because when we received the Torah, hatred descended from the heavens with the Torah. Why? So this is a flip side. I'm going to look at it the same idea, but from the other perspective, from the perspective of the Goy. I'm a Goy. I believe in communism. I think communism is great, right? I'm a Chinese. I believe in, what was his name? Mao, right? Mao, the guy who these people are just completely crazy. When you read these people, you're like, they're completely crazy people. Wow. Okay. Anyway, I put that on the side. There was a thing where they wanted to kill some bird because a bird was eating some wheat or something. They had this. Am I saying that correct? So they had in China. Everybody was instructed to try to kill this bird. Then, because they killed the bird, there was another what? Sparrows. That's it. Exactly. These people come. So they killed all the sparrows, and then this. I don't know. Maybe there was locusts or something. You know.
With the ostrich in Canada.
The crazy people. I mean, they're Majnun. So anyway, so Yadda Sin'a la'olam. This is in China, what I'm talking about. Every country has its own Majnun. Okay, so because the Jews are the only people that have this book given to us by the Almighty, which serves as a frame of reference for any other system. So if I'm a Jew and you're a Goy and you're telling me, oh no, I want you to believe in communism, I'm so sorry, I don't believe in it. I don't accept your values. We have a God, we have a king, our king gave us a law, and this law is above any law you can give us. You're Antiochus. Antiochus says, bow down to the statue. Why? So for a Gentile, the answer is obvious. The king told you to bow down, just bow down for crying out loud. The king protects you. Of course you should bow down. Show your allegiance to the king. But the Jews never did that. The Jews always rejected the authority of the king. We accepted the authority of the king under the authority of God, no problem. We're the best citizens in the world. Lowest crime, lowest everything, right? We're always accepting the laws, right? When was the last time that a bunch of Jews went on a subway and then oh man, this Jews guy, let's go to the other car. It never happened. I mean, no, seriously, a bunch of Hasidic Jews, this looks like a rough crowd. It doesn't happen. Okay, so we all know this, right? But Yavdasin ala olam. We're the people that refuse to accept the political establishment as the highest authority. We see through it. We understand. We understand what it is. You understand? So on the one, so there's Yisurim. They hit us because we reject their system of authority. We're not going to accept the hierarchy of the king or any political establishment. We will be good citizens until they tell us to make Hilul Shabbat. We will be good citizens until they say do Avodah Zarah. We will be good citizens as long as you don't tell us to reject the kingdom of the Almighty.
So the hate is not because we're the quote-unquote chosen nation, because isn't it say somewhere that Hashem offered up the Torah to all the nations?
Yeah. By the way, the whole premise, where does it say, quote unquote, we're chosen? They can ask them. Where does it even say that? So, we chose the Torah. They all have the opposite. But any Gentile wants to become Jewish, become Jewish. I mean, just know what the risks are. But if you really want to become Jewish, we'll accept you as a get. So, we're actually the only nation that's unchosen from an ethnic perspective. If you want to become a Swiss, go. Good luck becoming a Swiss citizen. If you want to become, if you're white, not from North Africa, and you want to become a French citizen, good luck with that. They'll let you into the country. Right, we'll see that. We accept other people. We accept other people. We don't care what your ethnicity is. Just follow our laws. Follow the Torah. Okay, so that's the first thing. And so that's the Torah brought hatred to the world. It was a fascinating passage in, I forgot where my father wrote about this, but it was really fascinating, and I'd like to share it with you. So, in this book, my father is pointing out that the Jews, in the early days of the Greeks, were considered and referred to by the Greek philosophers as a nation of wise men. So if you look at the early writings of the Greeks, They referred to the Jews as wise, as a wise nation, as a nation of philosophers. Everything was l'sheva. They were praising the Jews greatly. The Greek philosophers were praising the Jews. And we see in the Gemara that there was discussions and debates between the Jewish Hachamim and the Greek philosophers. And then something happened. The Septuagint. In the days of Ptolemy instructed that the Bible be translated into the Greek language, which was the vernacular of those times. Very interesting. Okay, what happened? Many Goyim started reading the Bible for the first time. And for the first time they were exposed to Jewish literature and to the stories in the Bible and to the values in the Bible. And many people were converting and they became enamored of the Jews even more so. And then suddenly, you have anti-Semitic pogroms in Alexandria and in other places in the Greek Empire. And then eventually we have the story of Hanukkah, where they really went full-blown against the Jews. They started going into Israel. So my father asked a question. What happened? The Jews were like, the philosophers, the great people. Then they translate our book, and they loved the book, and people were converting into Judaism. Suddenly, 180-degree turn. The Jews are hated. There's pogroms. My father points out, and he shows the historical records, that the political establishment of those days recognized that the Jewish Torah is a threat to their authority. Because for the first time, people had access to a truth that didn't come from the BBC or from the other, whatever government channels. They had access to a truth that was eternal. And they began to propagate anti-Semitic slander against the Jewish people in order to prevent the Goyim from continuing to be enamored of the Torah, from continuing to love the Jewish literature, because they realized this was a threat to their own power. That's exactly Sinai, She'ardasin ala olam. The hatred that the Torah caused in the world is because the other kings were threatened by this. And there's a famous Gemara that the kings were sitting down and they heard the earth shaking and they're saying, what's going on? And Bil'am says, God is giving them the Torah. So all the kings of the world were shaking in their pants. Right? What's going to happen in the Yemot HaMashiach, of course, is because today we live in a society that you can't hide the truth like you were able to. So in the Yemot HaMashiach, eventually the truth will come out. And once the truth comes out, it's going to be over for all these corrupt politicians and all these anti-Semites. They're going to be dislodged and it will be eternal, because the eternal truth of the Torah will no longer, there will be no possibility to hide it anymore. You understand? That's Yemot HaMashiach. We're getting there. But in the meantime, that's the idea of the Torah. Okay, any questions?
So in the time of Mashiach, you'll also be able to see what all the Yisurim meant?
Yeah. Oh, personal Yisurim?
Yeah.
Oh, personal Yisurim. That's a dialogue between you and God. I hope that, as we grow older, we want God to give us intelligence and we want to understand things about ourselves. And I believe that oftentimes when you get old, like Yaakov Avinu, he had tremendous Yisurim, right? Tremendous Yisurim. And yet in this week's Perashah, he says something very beautiful. He says, Ha'elohim haro'eh oti mikol ra. Ha'malach hago'el oti mikol ra. Yaakov Avinu realizes that God sent a malach, and that every decision he made in his life and every difficulty that he went through was actually God guiding him through his life, right? So we all hope to be like Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, when he lost Yosef for 22 years, it was immense darkness, immense suffering. But suddenly he realized at the end of his life, he sees the whole grand plan. That's what he says. You understand? That God, who has always guided me from the moment I was born until this day, right? He gives thanks to that God. So as we get older, we hope to understand things a little better.
Rabbi, when I see anti-Semitism today, mostly what I see is jealousy on their part of the anti-Semites, and inadequacy. As they feel towards the Jews.
They have a tremendous envy.
We don't go around slitting people's throat on the train.
Yeah.
I mean, we're generally peaceful people.
Yeah.
And So it's to me, I see a whole bunch of jealousy.
So let me explain to you let me explain the connection. The connection is as follows. Who told them to be jealous of the Jews? Who told them that the Jews are robbing, that the Jews are dishonest, that the Jews are unfair? The leaders told them that. Meaning, this idea that you're jealous of the Jews, it's because your mind was brainwashed by corrupt leaders. You can also go and see every hospital in the country is either a Jew founded the hospital, has Jewish, pavilions, right? All the universities, Jew. How much money did we get? How many people did we save with the medicines? Hundreds of millions of lives we saved. So the same politicians that cause these people to be envious because supposedly we're unfair, we robbed everybody. They could have told them, look what the Jews did, look what they contributed, look at all the Nobel Prize winners, look at all the medicines, look at all the technologies, this is all Jew, every Jew. Palestinian, they contributed, we have to be fair. The suicide vest, right? The suicide vest, that's what they contributed to humanity. Bravo.
It's also funny they say like the Jews run the world in like all these different places, and all that. But a lot of those Jews are like,
oh, look, we definitely run the city of New York, right? Which explains why we got an anti-Semitic Islamist who, by the way, gets inaugurated over a Quran in a tunnel, right? When Jews were just tortured in tunnels. I don't think it was a coincidence. He chose a tunnel in allegiance with Hamas. My own opinion, you don't have to accept that. But the point is, we really run the world so well. I have to say we're doing a great job. It's unbelievable. The stupidity of anti-Semites, you can't help them. It just boggles the imagination. But be that as it may, you see the connection? So they're brainwashed there was a leadership that causes them to hate the Jews. That's the problem.
What was the slander of those days that they...
In the days of the Greeks, my father documents it in in his book. I think it's called The Gospel According to the Jews, one of the last books he wrote. I believe was there. Okay, let's continue.
So it makes a lot of sense, meaning as far as that Torah says, men is equal, all men are equal.
Yes.
So that a hierarchy, a king, that's way against my message. I can't have control.
Yes.
Getting out there, and if people are reading it or seeing that, that's a threat to them. So that's what you're saying.
100%. Slaves have rights. What do you mean slaves have rights? What are you talking about, right? No, you have a right to land, you have a right to property, you work, and you generate income, the income is yours. But what? That's not... Okay, so you understand. Okay, so that's Torah. The second thing is Eretz Yisrael. So Eretz Yisrael is a problem. Let me explain to you. I think the main reasons that the Arabs hate the land, because other than all the reasons we know, they're Islamists, they want to conquer the world, but the truth, I want to give you my own perspective. You go to Israel today, the place is beautiful. Beautiful. You walk around, my daughter lives in Dizengoff in Tel Aviv. Okay, I'm a rabbi, but it's my daughter, I'm going to go visit her. Beautiful. I can walk around any time of day, any time of night. I don't feel any crime. The streets are filled 11, 12 at night, every single night. All the cafes are filled. It's like a party atmosphere. Where are you going to go to? Where are you going to have this in the Arab countries? Where in Mosul and I don't know, in Kandahar and where do you have this among the Muslim countries? You go to any Muslim country, it's like going to a sewage. They're filthy, disgusting. Now, the countries like that have successful countries, United Arab Emirates, made peace with us. Why? Okay, you have a country like Saudi Arabia, they'll make peace with the Jews also. The only exception, in my opinion, is Qatar. Qatar, is that the way you pronounce the word? Qatar? Qatar? Qatar. Qatar is the only exception. They hate the Jews. They're Muslim ideologues who hate the Jews. But their wars against Israel, and this is, I think, a good historical interpretation. Why did Nasser go to war against Israel? Because Egypt was a sewage, and Israel was a blossoming paradise in the desert. And what are you going to tell your people? You tell them hate the Jews. Right? That's the truth. That's why they hate Israel. The Palestinians, why do they hate Israel? We gave you the most beautiful beachfront property in the world, Gaza, Jenin. We gave you greenhouses. We gave you all this beautiful technology. They're animals. They burnt it down. Because we hate the Jews. Okay, you hate the Jews because you can't do anything. Because an animal can't do anything productive, so you hate the Jews. So Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. How do we know this? That Eretz Yisrael, you have to be willing to fight for it. You have to be willing to suffer for the land of Israel. Boy, do we know that today, right? Dichtiv, as the pasuk says, "V'yadatim levavecha." You should know fully with your heart. Ki ka'asher yaser ish et beno, Adonai Elohecha miyaserecha. God is going to make you suffer. You're going to go into Israel. It's not going to be an easy journey. It's going to be tough. You're going to have to fight. There's going to be goyim that are going to stand in your way. But God is doing this because He wants you to fight for the land. Because you fighting for the land means that you want the land. You don't want the presence of God? Go to all the other countries in the world. You want the presence of God? You want the Shekhinah? Fight for it, and you'll get it. The next pasuk says, right? So God is bringing you to this beautiful land, and this land is something you have to be willing to fight for. So today, it used to be all the anti-Semitism was related to the first stage, which is Torah. Now that we're in the land of Israel, the anti-Semitism is related to Israel, right? That's a stage we're in. Eventually, we'll get to Yemot HaMashiach. And now we're going to have the third stage, Ha'olam haba min ayin. How do you know that Olam haba, you need Yisurim? And now I want to explain this.
The second one, just to clarify, it's like a father to their son, that they rebuke them and they give them suffering, so to speak. That's how God said the land is.
Let me explain to you. Maybe I should have elaborated a little more. You have a son. Anybody here not want to give their children everything? Anybody here want their children to suffer? No. And yet, it is a fact that when people spoil their children, when people are very successful, and they give their children everything, and they want to ensure that the children don't suffer, and everything is wonderful, and everything is pleasant, those children have not been challenged. And because they have not been challenged, there is a danger that they won't develop the right personality. And you see this a lot, that they won't develop the right values, that they won't develop the right attitude. Part of being a good parent is to ensure that your children are challenged. If everything is on a golden platter, I'm not sure what's going to happen to that child. They're being very frank. And I've seen this I've seen people that I know that are very successful, and I see the children don't have the values of their parents, and I know why. Because the parents were challenged, and the child wasn't. Very important as a parent to challenge our children. I can tell you, I was very challenged. Boy, did I have a wow? Yeah, I was asked to do a lot in studying Torah, and my father would wake me up in the middle of the night. We studied Torah. It didn't matter. There was no excuses. Okay, stuff like that. So yeah, I was challenged. So that's what it says. A good parent challenges his children, and that's the pasuk. The same way a father, he causes his son certain pain, not physical pain, God forbid, in the sense of crazy people who whatever, don't want to talk about in the synagogue, but that challenge, like do something, succeed, break out of your shell. Adonai Elohecha miyaserecha. So also God is going to force you. When you come into Israel, it's not going to be easy. And God is doing this intentionally because He wants you to become a special nation. Right? Well, that's what's happening in Israel today. I have to say, on a really good note, I mean, we know all the suffering that's happening in Israel and that happened, but you see the new generation of Israelis, they are not like their parents. They're just not. You listen to the songs on the radio here. I mean, the words are just repugnant, and the melodies aren't particularly appealing. But what is her name? Swift. Somebody help me. Taylor Swift. I mean, it's idiotic songs. I mean, just idiotic words about idiotic topics. I mean, just idiotic lyrics. I mean,
Make money.
What? No. I give credit, but she's making money because this is what people like. People like somebody who looks like what's the word, hooker or whatever. So it's a hooker. It's great. This is everybody's dream is to have a good relationship with the hooker. So no problem that she dresses like that, and the words are indicative of that type of personality. Right. So she became rich. She plugged in to what people are looking for. I understand that. It's part of the Western society and Western culture. But the truth, you go to Israel, some of these songs and the words of these songs are unbelievable. The new I'm telling you, I'm not, it's not like I'm not into pop culture. I'm not the type of guy who goes to concerts and starts, what do people do with their hands, like this, whatever. I'm not into that whole vibe. But sometimes my younger kids, they put on songs from Israel. I'm like, listening to the words. Are you kidding me? Like, are these real songs? Gorgeous words. So there's like a new form of humanity now rising up in Israel. The new generation is a new type of humanity. It's not at all like the old generation. And it's beautiful to see. So you see that God, He's raising His children in the land of Israel. Like yes, there were Yisurim, but the new generation is a beautiful generation, right? So I have to acknowledge the pasuk, the truth of the pasuk. What time are we supposed to stop today?
Another 10 minutes.
Yeah, everybody good with that?
That's okay, yeah, we're good.
Right. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Any questions before we continue?
Is it necessary to be so that is it like a considered a huge benefit to be
Put it this way.
tribulations?
Yeah, God always brings tribulations upon those who He loves. That's why we know Avraham Avinu. We know Yaakov. We know Yosef. We know Moshe Rabbeinu. All the tzaddikim went through real suffering, but the suffering was for their good, to enable them to grow. Because again, when you're dull and bored and unchallenged, you don't form the right networks in your brain, and you become a dull, boring person. The real great men, these are people who were challenged, who had to struggle and break out and do things, right? You see it. You see it also Asarar, Malchut, and many of the great Tanaim and Amoraim. Not everybody had a good life. In fact, we're going to see in next week's class some of the Chachamim who suffered. We'll read about that later on, next week. Okay? And then the third thing, Olam Haba. Olam Haba is different than the previous two things. The previous two things was national Yisurim, and I was talking about the national Yisurim. Somebody here asked me, will we understand? And I said, I hope that when you get older, you understand. And that's what this is about. Olam Haba minayin. In order to get to Olam Haba, God challenges us personally. He challenges us personally because if you ask, I'll give you $1 million in this world, and I'll give you $100,000 in the world to come. And most people's mindset is, give me $1 million in this world, and I'm okay with 100,000 in the world to come. That's the mindset. It's just we're not thinking about the world to come. It's real, but give me the $1 million. Just let me have the money, right? There's a story. There was Rabbi Hanina ben Dosai. He was one of the Tanaim, very, very poor individual, and oftentimes he would not. They would not have food for Shabbat. They wouldn't have halal for Shabbat. They wouldn't have oil to light the candles for Shabbat. So finally, his wife told him, pray to God. God listens to your tefillot, right? People would come to him to ask him to pray for them. So they say, pray to God. And He's going to accept your tefillah. Tell Him to give you some of the reward that you deserve in Olam Haba to bring it to this world. Right? That's a typical attitude. I'll tell you in a moment what happened. But that's really an attitude that most people have, right? We want to be comfortable in this world. Who doesn't want to be comfortable in this world? But God doesn't want us to be comfortable. He wants us to be challenged because, again, it's oftentimes you're too comfortable here. You won't do what you need to get there. Here, how long are you planning on living? I don't know, 120 years? Right? Realistically, I'm just trying to be optimistic. 120 years, let's say. Okay, 140 years. There it's eternality. So eternality versus 100 whatever years. Okay, God should bless us all with a long life. Okay, and yet we're always going to be looking at the comfort here. And okay, give me the 100,000 there. I'm okay. I'm like, don't talk to me about that right now. It's annoying. It's irritating to talk about that. So that's the attitude. So the wife tells him, pray to Hashem. So he prays to Hashem, and Hashem gives him this gold. Unbelievable. Very excited. That's it. That's it. Problem solved. Go to Seudah. Buy all the mazzi you want to buy the Shabbat. We're set. Okay. No problem. So he goes to sleep at night. Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. He has a dream. And in the dream, he's in Olam Haba. He's studying Torah with all the Chachamim. And they're all sitting they all have a private table. The table is shaped like a triangle, 3-legged table. And he's sitting on his table. One of the legs is missing. And he's trying to get his books. He can't get a book because every time he puts it, 2 legs on a triangle, it's very very unpleasant. He couldn't study, couldn't do anything. He wakes up, Elohim Yishmor. What happened? They said, they took the reward from Olam Haba, they gave it in Olam Hazeh. That's great. You have it in Olam Hazeh now. But now whatever you were planning in Olam Haba, well, it ain't going to work out very well. Right? We wanted to challenge you in Olam Hazeh for a reason. So when you get to Olam Haba, you have this beautiful table waiting for you, right? So he told Hashem, please take away the gold, take away everything. I want my Olam Haba. I'm okay, keep me in Olam Hazeh where I am, and give me in Olam Haba what I deserve. The point of the story, we all work hard, we all want to be blessed by Hashem, we all want the beracha, not against that. Not saying we shouldn't go for that. But if you're too comfortable and you're not challenged by God, it could be consequences.
Just curious, was there any footnote about the wife and he told
What did the wife tell him afterwards? Oh, okay. Listen, we think there's a beautiful Gemara in Masechet Yevamot. There's a Gemara in Samech Gimel Amud Aleph on the bottom of the page. It continues to Samech Gimel Amud Bet on top of the page, and it says that Rabbi Chaya, his wife, was very mean to him, and she was always bothering him. And Chazid, it brought him a lot of angst, and he always used to get his wife. I think it was like a bouquet of flowers, if I remember the Gemara correctly. He always used to get like a bouquet of flowers. And once his son comes to his father, says, Daddy, she's always making you suffer. She's always bothering you. Like, why are you going to get these flowers? Come on. He says, Dayenu she megadelim et banenu umasilim otanu mina avera. He says, first of all, we have to be thankful to our wives, because number one, they raise our children for us, and you can't measure that in money. And number two, they save us from the avera, right? So for these 2 reasons alone, Rabbi Chaya says, I'm buying her flowers, and yes, she's causing me trouble and all that stuff. I accept it, right? So I understand. I understand sometimes people have trouble, and I know, and sometimes there's divorce, and that's fine. If you have to give a get, you have to give a get. But when you're with your wife, you should appreciate your wife, or at least what she does. And this, that's the point of the Gemara. So that's your answer, Mikey. Olam Haba. So to get Olam Haba, it's a journey. It's a journey. You have to be ready for Olam Haba. You understand? And the pasuk says, Kiner misvah, the misvot that God gives us, each one of these is like a candle. A candle has the potential for light, but you have to light it. The Torah, the Torah is the light that's on top of the misvah. If you have a misvah, then you can have Torah. Then you can have the light of the Torah. Kiner misvah, the Torah. Meaning, if you're going to study Torah as a philosophical endeavor, but you don't have misvot, there's going to be no light, right? If you're going to study Torah just like academically, but you don't do the misvot, there's going to be no light. If you have the ner, which is the misvah, you perform the laws of the Torah, and then you study Torah, then there's light, right? And the pasuk says, Ner Adonai Nishmat Adam. The soul of a person is the candle of God. So I'm just connecting it with this. So when you perform the misvot and you light the Torah, you're actually lighting up your own neshama. Your neshama is the candle that is receiving the light of the Almighty. You understand? And that's what brings you to Olam Haba. But the journey that we have in life is often filled with musab, with challenges, smacks in the face. These challenges enable us to receive the light of the Almighty in our neshama, and then we can light up, and then we're ready for Olam Haba. You understand the point?
Rambam sometimes is not. He has that attitude, one of not crazy about these, meaning it's harder to fulfill these thoughts. In other words, if one is bogged down with Yisurim so much. So it's a blessing if one doesn't.
Of course, but God judges us. God knows what we are. So some people, they can go through life and they're so responsible and so diligent that they don't need Yisurim. There's some people like that.
Okay.
There are. But there are people who, if they don't have Yisurim and they're not challenged, they're going to be bums. And also children. There are some children who were not challenged by their parents and they come up beautiful. Some of they did it. And there are some children who weren't challenged and the parents should have challenged them. And because of that, they come out, Understand? So God knows what we need in our lives. God knows exactly what the pressure points are and how to cause us to do what we need to do. Are there people that maybe, yeah, you're right. But even Rambam himself, Hazid, he was very wealthy. His brother was a businessman. His brother was a Rabbi David. He used to go do business. And Rambam was able to study Torah. And suddenly his brother died. And you know what Rambam was? It was a watershed moment in Rambam's life. Alav Shalom, two Safikim. Rambam was the greatest, right? Moshe lo kam Moshe. It was a tremendous crisis, and now he had to work for the king, and he would wake up early in the morning, and until he would get back home to study Torah. He says it would be late at night. He have to sit on a stone chair just so he doesn't fall asleep, because he was afraid that if he sits in a regular, comfortable chair, he would sleep. But that's when he produced his greatest Torah, right? The Mishneh Torah. It was from the suffering that came about. So that was what made Rambam, right? So every person, every great man, usually needs to be challenged, and there are those who don't need to be challenged. Fair enough, wherever they are. We go to Olam Haba, it's all, the suffering ends. Olam Haba is only light, there's no darkness. So it doesn't stay forever. This Tochechot, Chaim, it's in this world, not in the world to come. Yes? Alright, gentlemen.
Thank you.